But Michigan, I can only be here once, and I can only impact, the University of Michigan, the community, my teammates once, and I'm ready for that last year, my senior year. Uh, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun ride, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get back on that field with the boys, and really just go finish it off. We're so close, and I think Team 144 can finish it off.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in on this Friday. That was Michigan running back Blake Corum. He was on the In the Trenches pod, talking about finishing it off, coming back. You know that by now, but I'm guessing that you're not tired of hearing what Blake Corum has to say. He's talking about finishing it off, looking forward to next season, and we're going to finish off the week and get you ready for the weekend. Everything you need to know about some things that you don't need to know about the Maize and Blue as we sit here live at a minute past 1 o'clock. We're here every day, weekdays, talking about the latest in Michigan sports, and no different here today as we take a look at what's going on with the football team, the football program. You got some big announcements being made that we'll discuss. You also have the basketball team who are back in Ann Arbor now. They had an eventful game last night. Didn't go their way, but we'll get to all of that and more. And when I say more, let's just take a look. You've got an offensive lineman announcing that he's coming back for his 5th year. That's some good news for Michigan. We'll get to that. Plus, Eyabi Okie has entered the transfer portal. We'll look at the ramifications of that for U of M. You may have heard that there's a bunch of football games that are going to be played this weekend. We'll look at it from a Maize and Blue standpoint. We'll look at the coaching staffs and the players and see what former Michigan players and coaches are going to be in action on this Super Wild Card weekend. And we're going to start with Michigan and Iowa. I will give you some thoughts at some point about Jim Harbaugh and his status. I'll just give you an update. As it sits here right now, there's not much of an update, to tell you the truth. That's the update. But, maybe as I sit here, maybe something will happen. Maybe something will happen this hour with Jim Harbaugh, and then we can move forward. Let's start with that basketball game last night. Michigan had a real opportunity. The news is, they end up losing by 9 when they were up by 4 with 20 seconds less, with less than 30 seconds to play. They're up 4, and they ended up losing it. They let this one slip away. They were up 7. You can look at a lot of the different numbers. Up 7 with 2:18 left. The Hawkeyes, they get a 4-point play with 20 seconds left, and then they score the first 8 in overtime. And it's a tough loss to take if you're a Michigan basketball fan. This is one. Road victories in the Big Ten are worth their weight in gold, and Michigan was in prime position to be able to get one. And it just shows you what happens. All sports are, you win, you lose, you make a shot, you miss a shot kind of thing. In basketball, you had that 4-point play. You don't see many of those with 20 seconds to go. Michigan also with that 20 seconds, and there were some fouls to give and everything else. But, Doug McDaniel was driving the lane. He hits that. We're not sitting around looking at every single player and the rotations and talking about the coach and discussing just how bad everything is. It would be the complete opposite, but that's the way it goes in sports. Jet Howard had 34. It was an incredible performance, but Michigan didn't win the game. So nice job by Jet, but Michigan couldn't execute in crunch time, and that's what separates the good teams from the also rans. And Michigan has played a lot of games. I mean, this is I think for a lot of people, they ask the questions like, you watch Michigan play Virginia. You watched them out, probably not in London because they were playing the same time the NFL, but maybe against Kentucky, North Carolina. I mean, those are three like a red letter games. Certainly you watched them against Michigan State. And with all of those games, maybe not Michigan State, Michigan was in there and played pretty well and had a chance. And they say, well, how come they can't execute down the stretch? And say, well, that's what it's all about. And a little bit to do with coaching and a little bit to do with not having the players. And they've got some players, but if you can't make the plays in winning time and in basketball, then you can play the entire game, but you get down there with 2 minutes to go, you got to make some plays. And yeah, is it tough setting up probably your best player in Hunter Dickinson because he's a post guy and you got to get him to him, with his back to the basket or, whatever you're going to draw up and then they can run some guys at him and get the ball out of his hands. Yeah. Jet Howard, he draws a lot of attention. He's got this NBA game, step back, all this stuff, but that didn't happen for him. McDaniel can get himself loose. He likes to take the big shots, and he made a big one last week, but he wasn't able to get this one to go. The start. Here's the thing with Michigan. Now that you take a look at it, it's like the starting lineup. You could certainly make a case for Terrence Williams II to go to the bench, but then you're like the bench. There's search for answers on the bench. Maybe they'll put in the true freshman Terrace Reed Jr. into the starting lineup, but that's not going to solve any of the offensive problems you wouldn't think, but maybe they'll do that. Maybe they'll put Cheddar, the redshirt freshman, Will Cheddar, get some set shots going and get him into the starting lineup. That seems a little bit too soon. Certainly get him some more shots, but they got a ways to go here still in this season so they can, get some wins. Just last night was a golden opportunity and they weren't able to get it done. So that's where I'm at with last night's game. You can always leave the feedback and tell us where you're at. Good to see Kenneth and Andres and Account 22 talking about a 4-point play. Such a flop. Well, whether it's a flop or not, catch and shoot. You got to defend without allowing somebody to flop. We're going to the referee screwed Michigan. Pure Montana. Keegan returning as a surprise. Same for Okie leaving. Yeah. Double surprise. Double shot there. We're already getting you some speculation about Michigan and Okie that they'll be fine without him. Yeah. Well, let's get into that. First, that news with Trevor Keegan. He said PM said he was surprised to see Keegan coming back. And, Keegan put out on the Michigan football Twitter that he's thrilled to get back to work with his teammates and get rolling. There you go. Get back to work, Trevor Keegan. And I remember some conversations that I was having during the season about Michigan. And a former player had told me, the best player on that offensive line, you know who it is? And I said, Olatimi. And he said, no. And then I said, Ryan Hayes. And he said, no, it's Keegan. He's the best, and Zinter would have been that answer heading into the season. And it just shows you, that's the kind of, when you got to go in good and you only have 5 guys to pick from, and you start talking about who's the best and you start naming 3, 4, and somebody's like, no. And you can make a case for 4 of the 5 guys. That's what you want. And they really perform well. I know not the last game against TCU, but this is really good news. Now, it feels like that Keegan and Zach Zinter are linked. They're both guards. They're both fabulous. You see them when they're hanging out, you see them together. They had a deal. Some kind of I don't know, kids books or something. So, maybe the possibility, and you have till Monday. And I know Michigan brought in a lot of transfers on that offensive line, but I think still you'd like to have Zach Zinter back, wouldn't you, as a Michigan fan? And if you get both of those inside guys back. Now, if I had to guess, he's probably going to go pro, but let's just see. That would be some great news. I think it's great news that Michigan gets Trevor Keegan. Michigan, if we have learned anything over the last 2 years, that I think we can all agree that Michigan's identity wants to be playing physical up front and being able to run the football. I know you could say that for the last 50 years, but football's changed over the last couple of years. But here's Michigan doing it and getting a big piece in the interior offensive line back, an excellent football player. That's some great news for Michigan. Now on the other side is, I don't know, disappointing. You say bad news. Eyabi Okie enters the transfer portal. He had 11 tackles and 4 sacks this past year. He was a real surprise. Heading into the season, we talked all summer about, who's going to replace Ejabo and Hutchinson and blah, 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 and all the different names. And then in late August, just out of nowhere, Michigan picks up a transfer in a guy that was called, Eyabi Anoma at first. And they said, no, it's Eyabi Okie. And, this was his 4th spot, and he came in, and he was tremendous. He was, tremendous right off the bat for Michigan. It looked like, former 5-star. Looked like he found a home here. Looked like the perfect defense for him. This 3-4. And that's the part where I sit here. It looked like, it did look like the perfect defense for him. I don't know why he's hitting the transfer portal. Your guess, maybe he wants to enjoy the weather somewhere. Maybe, somebody offered him more name, image, and likeness money. Maybe he wanted more name, image, and likeness, something like that. I don't know. Because if you just look at it from a standpoint of playing football, this defense, like Okie immediately, I remember Josh Henschke, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, he was talking with someone, and he put out almost after the first few days of practice, almost immediately, he put out the comparison to David Ejabo, and I was like, wow, David Ejabo, that sounds good. I'm thinking, wow, right off the bat, they're coming out with Ejabo comparisons. But then when you watch the play, it's like, I can see the David Ejabo comparison. And if you're looking for the fit football-wise, this was it for him. Why would he want to leave? And, Mike Morris and Taylor Upshaw, I mean, he was going to have, I would think, a great chance to be in there and actually be the next David Ejabo or be the next Mike Morris. I mean, it was right there. Sure, there was some competition, and maybe, late in the season, there were some other guys getting some more snaps. Sure. But he had shown enough going into the offseason where, would it be a huge surprise if you'd have said, man, Okie would be right in the rotation, right in there, getting after the quarterback and being, a really big part of the Michigan defense? Yes. So, I know how it works. As soon as somebody leaves, like, yeah, okay, we'll be fine. I think Michigan will be fine. They've got a lot of depth, and, they brought in Josiah Stewart, the Coastal Carolina transfer. I don't know. Are your feelings going to get hurt? If you're somebody like, it's Michigan, every position they're bringing in somebody that, could take your spot. You got to compete. It's like the pros. It doesn't get any bigger right now with what's going on with Michigan. I mean, you just want to go somewhere where you're going to be, I don't know, like, a little confusing for me because it's, he's a good player and it was a good fit, and there's a path to greatness for him. So the combination of those 3 things, I don't get, but there's always reasons that, okay, I see it. And sometimes things, I mean, he is a guy that has moved around a lot. Maybe he just, some people are like that. My dad was like that. Lived in an apartment for 1 year. Next thing you know, he's moving down to Arkansas. Next thing you know, he's moving back to Michigan. I always thought people were chasing him around, but maybe he didn't like, just didn't like staying in one spot for very long. I think actually people were chasing him around. But that's it. I wish Okie well. I don't understand it. Good luck to him. Michigan will be fine. But he was a good player. Is this a big loss? It's a loss, and it could be a big loss. I mean, he's a good football player, and I think he could have been a great football player. So, yeah, I mean, that's one less arrow in your quiver, if you're the Michigan defense. But they got a lot of guys coming in, and that's the way it goes. You're not going to get it's not all going to be guys that are leaving where you just shrug your shoulders and be like, yeah, you could see it. I don't really see this one, but that's it. And, good luck to them. And, we'll see. It was nice while it lasted. Came in late August, and now he is gone in early January. Nice to know you. He'll go do the okie dokie, which is short for okay. And, here he is that I always thought it kind of looked like the hokey pokey after Eyabi Okie, got a sack. And I don't get to use any of those okie dokie or hokey pokey for Eyabi Okie anymore. It's over. Maybe until next year where we find out where he goes. And, that's it. Account 22 thinks that the edge will still be great. And he is talking about Josiah Stewart, who I mentioned, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, and how he reminds him of James Houston. Yeah. I think Michigan's okay. I mean, this is not where you sit around saying, oh, man, I don't know how they're going to replace him. I think Stewart's the first name that comes to mind. Braden McGregor, Harrell. I mean, these are the guys. Michigan's got a lot of edge players. But, it's a loss. It's not one that we need to sit around and act like, Michigan can't fulfill their goals of winning the national championship next year, getting to the national championship game, getting back to the college football playoff. I hadn't talked about Michigan next year and the end goal, but kind of waiting to see everything that, that plays out, coach and everything else and who's coming back. But does it sound like, overshooting something when I say that, Michigan wants to win the national championship next year? I mean, they've been to the playoffs 2 years in a row. Their quarterback's coming back. They just got Blake Corum. There's Trevor Keegan offensively. And then the thing about the defense is you just sit there for a second and you remember last year, it was like this defense was not going to be as good with losing, the kind of talent that they did. Certainly Hutchinson, he was a great player. Ajabo, great player. You have a hard time replacing those guys' production, but production-wise, they replaced them and more. So, yeah, this system and the kind of players that they have, and it's why when somebody comes at you and says, oh, you're just, brushing off Okie, not really brushing him off, but just looking at what has been going on the last 2 years. What do you want to do? Sit around and act like, the sky's falling because a rotational rush edge that you liked, decides to bolt? What are you going to do? Andres is excited about Braden McGregor. Going to have a breakout year. Andres, if we're talking about breakout years, Braden McGregor's right at the front of the line. Just thinking about him, just as you typed in his name and I mentioned his name, he's got a, he looks a lot like Hutchinson. I mean, like, it looks like you put those guys side by side, you're like, hey, not the same guy. But, they play the same position. But McGregor has got an ability to react to the quarterback. I would say, he's usually talking about twitchy as an athlete, like it was speed and everything, but maybe it's just hand-eye coordination. It's like the quarterback throws the ball, McGregor's, got a beat and he's running in at him. And next thing you know, he's got his hand for the pass breakups. He's all over the pass. Twitchy, hand-eye coordination, whatever it is, I'm with you. I think McGregor, the way that Harbaugh talked about, how that Michigan was going to replace Ajabo and Hutchinson, and he was like, these guys are scary good. He was right. He thought wow, Jim's really talking up these guys. And he said, scary good. The first guy said Mike Morris. Mike Morris could be, the next Ajabo or Hutchinson. Braden McGregor could be the next Mike Morris. Like, who's arguing with that? I think we expect that to happen. I'm with you, Andres. Here's somebody mentioning Moore. You want to see Moore? Oh, Derek Moore, the true freshman. Yes. Have you told me that you thought Derek Moore was going to take some like kind of gigantic leap as a Michigan Rush edge? A Michigan Rush edge? Sort of say that fast sometimes. It kind of all just sounds like one big slush puppy. But yeah, Moore. There's another one. Hutchinson, McGregor and Derek Moore. I'm with you. I'm feeling what everybody's bringing today. This is good. We're all in tune. We're really feeling it right now. JP getting in on a Friday, and it's always good to see him. Level-headed JP says, not sure what Buffkin was thinking on that last Iowa 4-point play. They ran that same high screen, and he didn't get through it. Second time he fought through and gave the kid nowhere to land. Yeah. No, it wasn't good. And the thing about Buffkin is that, he had just hit the bucket, to put him up 4. Could have been a hero for a night. Getting that win, we'd be talking about, if the 4-point play, he doesn't make that shot, Michigan wins. We're talking about, look at him. Look at how Doug McDaniel stepped up and that point guard, has seized this job and he's all over the place. His speed, and look at him. Look at Buffkin, an ascending player. You like him. Even when he didn't have his best game, he threw down this excellent dunk in the first half and hit the big shot with 30 seconds to go to put Michigan up by 4, getting the big win against the Hawkeyes. What about Jed Howard? Uh-oh. We'd be doing all that. A little cheddar coming off the bench, pitching in. But now, you get to say all those things. Now it's like, it's not back to the drawing board, but, they got Northwestern, a big tilt on Sunday afternoon. You got to win that game. Win that one and, put a couple wins together. And let's see. Well, they got Maryland on the road after that. This Thursday. So see if they can go back and do what they did to Maryland the first of the year. Let's just punch them in the mouth. And go in, walk in, punch them in the mouth, leave with a road W. Let's see if they're going to be able to do that. Yeah, you got to win up 4. It's the bottom line. I'm with you on that. Terrence Shannon, I think people are talking about count 22, wishing that he was at Michigan, maybe instead of Joey Buckets, and it looked like it was going to happen, but it didn't. Andres is talking about Michigan having an embarrassment of riches at the O-line. Well, I know what you're saying. In Michigan for 2 years in a row, it's not us just sitting around, putting a shine on Michigan. They have been judged as the Joe Sharon Moore first-time back-to-back winners. So they've got that feather in their cap. And they do bring back Trevor Keegan. That is, and they did go to the transfer portal and get Drake Nugent, who's expected to be the center. And they got Miles Hinton from Stanford. And then they got the big kid from Arizona State, Ladarius Henderson. And who knows how those guys are all going to fit in and how it's going to work out. But this is what it's all about. When you got a good program and you're winning and you start looking, that's the one thing about Okie is that if you said, what's Michigan, when they say, Penn State used to be known as linebacker U, Michigan and their offensive line for the longest time, it was like, you get an offensive line. Iowa had that going with some tackles for a while, and they got some tight ends. But, Michigan and their offensive line, that's a calling card that they have going right now. That's what they're known for. And now when you just start going back and you look from Kwity Paye, Uche, you start looking at these rush edge guys that go out there. And, obviously with Hutchinson and Ajabo and now Mike Morris, it's like they really got something going with the defensive end rush ends. And that's why Okie is a little bit confounding to me because he fit right in there and he was in such a great spot football-wise. What's going on? They had an embarrassment of riches there, but they lost. They lost the stack in Okie. Richard talking about the running back room. That's going to be exciting. Yeah, that's the best in the country, Richard. Good point. Remember when we were, forgot who it was. It might have been a Count 22. We were talking about the recruits, and Michigan's got, Benjamin Hall and Cole Cabana coming in next year. But they were like, Mike Hart can't recruit running back. Look at the running back room right now. When you bring back the guy that won the Heisman Trophy and didn't get hurt. Pretty good. Blank name says it might be good. Okie is transferring. The name change, the talk, and all the immaturity. I don't, who knows about all that? When I heard him talk, I'm not looking into any of that kind of stuff. I don't know about any of that. What I saw was a player. I mean, guys can change their name, hyphenate their names. They got all kinds of things. I don't know deep enough. Just like moving all around. People mature at different rates, and you get second chances. That's what America is all about. And it'll just look like a really nice fit here. So I'm not, downgrading him or anything on the way out. I don't know why anybody would do that. I mean, it's guessing. And you're talking about him being immature. I have zero reason to think that. And just because a guy leaves doesn't mean he's a bad guy. Guy could be the greatest guy in the world. We don't know the reason. But yeah, I get it. We're speculating. So that's part of it. And I'm just the part where I'm not speculating about his character or anything like that. I'm just looking at the opportunity that he had in this Michigan defense. And it looked like a really good spot for him. So that's the part that I think is unusual. But, everybody's got their thing about what it's all about and whatever. Count 22's got some opinions on it. And, that's what sports is about when we're sitting here on, taking a look and how it's going to work out. Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't like that Okie's doing the dokey and is leaving. Theodore says it's really sad that Okie is leaving. He was looking forward to how his game would change after a year of going through the Ben Herbert strength program. Yeah, for sure. Man, the talent was there. Come on. Otis John Jr. waiting until 1:30 before we got a Jim Harbaugh message. Now, if we just had a coach, I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out what's going on with the NFL first, OJ. Hey, we get all kind. I didn't ask for speculation, but we're getting it everywhere, all the way through. Anywhere you go. Do I think Charlotte is big on NIL? I don't know. Theodore's hoping that Michigan gets its stuff together regarding name, image, and likeness and the Harbaugh contract. We need clarity. Count 22 seems like he's dialed in. He's got his finger on the pulse of Michigan. He says that NIL is making good progress. Count 22, is that good progress where Michigan can give money to guys coming in? Or is it just, once they get here, they're able to spread it around, that kind of thing. So I don't know. When I see that NIL is making good progress, it's kind of like, we were here last time. We were at this very spot last year talking about NIL is looking really good for Michigan. And then it got into the summer and we had people like, Michigan is going to spring this gigantic, ginormous NIL collection that's going to turn college football on its ear. Michigan's got a monster. They got a treasure trove that they're going to unlock. And they kept saying that this monster, and then it was there pushing it back. And then it was like, these are people like that were, I guess, working hard at it. We're like, before the start of the season, Michigan's NIL monster will be unlocked. And then it didn't happen. And it was like, well, when Santa comes in. I don't know. NIL, it seems like it's, we're chasing it. It's like the Loch Ness Monster. Everybody's looking. Oh, yeah. We've seen it. But I'm going to have to wait till sorry, account 22. I'm going to have to see it, this monster, before I believe it. Nothing against you or anybody that's working hard or donating their money to name, image, and likeness. That's all appreciated. But, the monster collective that Michigan is going to be able to go out there and start strong arming. I guess that's not the way to put it. Just where they can be competitive and be able to get a 5-star or two. Okay. Let's go. I'm waiting for that. I've been a little bit too cynical about Michigan and 5 stars and name, image, and likeness. I shouldn't be. It's supposed to be all fun. And the anticipation of it. So, maybe I just need a little attitude adjustment on recruiting and name, image, and likeness and 5 stars. Just adjust my attitude a little bit on it. Come around to this way of thinking. That NIL is making good progress. We're making good progress in this show. And if you want to know about name, image, and likeness, you want to know the facts about it, well, you can check in all the time on the Maize and Blue Review and see what's going on with the next move with name, image, and likeness. What's going on with Jim Harbaugh? What's going on in recruiting? What's going on with those 5 stars? Who's coming in this week? What's the running back that's coming in? You want to know all of that before account 22. Join the Maize and Blue Review. You go to michigan.rivals.com and, you can be account 22 like that. All right. Okay. Before we get to some Harbaugh news, let's look at these NFL games that will be happening this weekend with a Michigan tilt. I went through the rosters and looked at them. And just as you're thinking about that, not everybody's gambling on the games. Not everybody's got a fantasy angle on these games. Some people just like to watch football. And if you're a Michigan fan, here's a couple of things that you might be able to at least, if they don't help you with your rooting interest, it can at least be like, oh, yeah. I forgot that so-and-so was on the roster. That's what this is for. You've got the 49ers hosting the Seahawks tomorrow at 4:30. San Francisco is a big favorite in this game. Mo Hurst, the former Michigan defensive tackle, he's on injured reserve for the 49ers. But Ambry Thomas, Michigan man, he is on that roster for San Francisco. You could see him out there. How about the 97 championship quarterback? Now, you forgot, that maybe that he went from the broadcast booth back to the playing field. Brian Griese is the quarterback coach for the Niners. And just think about the San Francisco 49ers and Griese's spot for a minute, because they lost Trey Lance, who they moved up and gave all these picks away to get the quarterback and pick him. What was it, number 3? In the draft, but then he was out and hurt. So then they had to bring Jimmy G back. And then Jimmy G was in there and 49ers were looking great. All this talent. Jimmy G didn't want to be there. Jimmy G was just going to go into modeling or whatever else. Then Jimmy G got hurt. So then they had to go to their 3rd string guy, and nobody, it was Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft out of Iowa State, Brock Purdy. And he's been pretty good. And Brian Griese, what about his contribution? Everybody, saying, oh, Kyle Shanahan, Griese, and Purdy. Keep an eye on that angle. And the Seahawks, former Michigan defensive lineman Brian Monet on the Seahawks roster. Yes, this should be the Detroit Lions playing in this game right here. And just think how exciting that would be. But, no, it's going to be the Seahawks. And by now, we are just going to accept that. Also tomorrow, you've got the Jags, the Jacksonville Jaguars, to host the LA Chargers. That's tomorrow night at 8:15. On the Chargers side, former Michigan defensive lineman Carlo Kemp, and also the Chargers on their coaching staff, Kevin Coker. He is a tight end coach for the Lightning Bolts. This is a hard game for me to read. I don't like Staley, the head coach of the Chargers. I don't like that Mike Williams is hurt and is probably not going to play. If you told me that Mike Williams was 100%, I would like the Chargers in this game, but I don't really like the Jags. So I don't know. This is a tough one to call. I'm going to pick the Chargers, but again, difficult to pick. Let's go to Sunday. Bills, Dolphins. This would be a lot better if it was another team besides the Dolphins, because Tua's hurt, and then so too is Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater. So they're on their third quarterback, and I don't know, this guy, there's no chance. You say this about the NFL, but I don't think there's any chance that the Dolphins stay in this game. They do have a former Michigan defensive tackle, Christopher Hinton. I don't know how much involved he is there for the Dolphins, but he's on the roster, and there it is. Maybe look for him Sunday while the Bills are racking up the touchdowns against the Finns. Other games. This is an interesting one, and this is a tough one to call. Everybody, including myself, Vikings are overrated. Vikings isn't any good. Their defense really stinks. They just have won a bunch of close games. And the G-Men, are we going to have the coach of the year and Brian Daboll with his team and a bunch of dimes as quarterback, Danny Dimes, and a lot of misfits at wide receiver that, I've hand $100 bills out. People couldn't name three of them. Maybe Kenny Galladay, but I don't know if he counts. He doesn't play. But the G-Men have former Wolverine Ben Bredesen on their roster. The Vikes have two former Wolverines, Luigi Villain, if you remember him. But how about the safety, Josh Metellus? Made a name for himself. He's a special teams stalwart there for the Vikings. But this is a tough one to call. This is one that I'm going with the upset. I think Minnesota is going to get beat in this game outright, and I think the Giants will advance. It's my call. Let's go to Sunday night. Bengals and Ravens. No Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. No chance for the Ravens, let's be honest. Josh Ross, unfortunately, I'm saying that, the former Michigan linebacker, no chance. The rush end, we are already talking about David Ojabo a lot in this show. He's back. You got the bench, Ben Mason, and then, Michigan's defensive coordinator from last year. That's a lot. Johnny Harbaugh, currently my favorite Harbaugh, with all these Michigan connections on his side. I don't think it's going to be enough. Dax Hill, Chris Evans, and former Michigan captain walk-on Jordan Kovacs, who is the assistant linebacker coach for the Bengals, who don't have the right side of their offensive line. It might not be good for the Bengals going back to the Super Bowl when they'd have to go through the Bills and the Chiefs. And I think they beat the Ravens pretty easily. And then, so that's going to do it. But we'll just continue wild card weekend in my breakdown for you, because you got old Tom Brady versus the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Coaching staff is dotted with some former Wolverines here as well. Larry Foote Jr., Harold Goodwin. He's the running game coordinator, handles the interior offensive lineman, has also the title of assistant head coach. He's a good one. He'll be a head coach. I think both of these guys. Let's make our predictions. Larry Foote Jr. will be a head coach in the NFL one day. Harold Goodwin will be a head coach in the NFL one day. Tom Brady, will he play next year? Will he win this game? How many times I thought that that's going to be it for the Patriots. That's going to be it for Tom Brady. And then I have the feeling that he is not going to win this game. But then look at how Dallas has played. I'm going to count out Tom Brady at home. One game. I think Tom Brady could probably get one game. But if I have to, and I'm going to pick, I completely understand how, if you're a Michigan fan, you say, I'm picking Tom Brady. I've picked him for 20 years. I'm picking him again. Understandable. He's been good to you. But how about Jordan Lewis? And that great interception against Wisconsin at the Big House, that 14-7 game, started raining right afterwards. Picturesque. Couple former Wolverine tight ends on the roster, and Ian Bunning and Sean McKeon. I don't know how it was. Doug Nussmeier was the offensive coordinator for like a minute, one season, and that was it. I think that's all he got. Under Harbaugh, right? Came from Alabama. Nuss. You forget about him. He's the quarterback coach, and he's going to figure in this game because he's got to get Prescott right, Dak Prescott. That's my preview with the NFL. Maybe it helped you as a Michigan fan thinking, I just like college football. I don't care too much about these games. Well, there's a little rundown of some of the Michigan players that'll be involved and my thoughts on them as well. Okay, that's where I'm at right now. Let's see where the people are at. Let's see. Still talking about the Michigan offensive line and rush edge. Theodore says Nugent is 6'1". Our transfer for center, not sure that's going to do it. Crippen is 6'4". All right. Just going on the size. I don't know. Just looking at that, but what kind of player is he? Are you completely excluding him, and why did they take him? You don't think he's coming in with the idea that, he's going to be the next Olu? And the Michigan's going to get here and say, whoa, you're too short? I think what the other guys are at this point. It's not elite edge guys. Michigan had to blitz a lot more this year. Yeah. Well, they blitzed too much against TCU, or whenever they blitzed, they got burned, or they just got burnt. What was it? They blitzed 16 times, but 3 times they got burnt really bad. Andre still talking about the depth. That's it. I really don't know what to say about that. Morris did not get much playing time. These other guys got a lot of playing time last year. Wait, Morris did not get much playing time. These other guys got a lot of playing time. I mean, Mike Morris? Account 22 mentioning John U. Bacon, seeming to think that they are close to reaching an agreement with Harbaugh. You mean right now? Or yesterday? He thought they were close? Because if they were close yesterday, and then here they are today, but that doesn't mean they're just close to an agreement. But it could get into the weekend. John U. Bacon, huh? I like John U. Bacon. I quote tweeted his Yogi Berra. He said, "What did he say? I forget what was Yogi say. You don't know until you know, or something." That's it. We'll take a few more on the feedback, and Michael's saying that CJ Stroud is staying. That would be news to me. Is CJ Stroud staying at Ohio State? That would be some really big news, since he's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. But if I heard this joke, I like it. Blank says he hears Stroud will declare for the NFL draft because the Colts have the 4th pick, and he's never played in Indy before, and he wants that experience. That's a good one, Blank. Andres, Brian Griese, future U of M coach. Well, Maybe. I mean, future U of M coach like now, like next year, I think that would be a little bit too big of a jump. Quarterback coach for the 49ers, Michigan head coach. Could he be a quarterback coach, offensive coordinator if he wanted to go to the college game? I could see that. I can see him as a head coach immediately. That seemed like too big of a jump. But that's me. Oh, here's somebody else talking about Griese as the head coach. We got OT saying pro football is boring. I hardly watch it. I get it. Account 22 says the Lions are fun to watch. Yeah, they were fun to watch this year. You know, I was thinking about the Lions and Harbaugh today for a second. Because the Lions were fun to watch. I remember on Thanksgiving when I was watching them and they lost to the Bills. I thought, I want to sit down and, Lions were like, I think getting 9 points. They were expected to get blown out in that game. Watching it with the family and everything. They want to know my opinion. I said, yeah, I think this is going to be a tough one for the Lions. Oh, then, of course, the Lions played great. Here they were. They looked like they were going to win it. And I just kept saying the whole time, I was like, man, I just want to see an entertaining game. It's what I said at the beginning. Is when I said when, at halftime and it was the third quarter, I kept saying it. And then at the end, I said, wow, it was a really entertaining game. And then they lost, And here's my point on the Lions. If we just take a step back for a second. The Lions are the worst organization in all of professional sports, in the history of professional sports. You can argue the LA Clippers. You're going to argue the Browns who left town. But, if you're talking about them, they also, went to 2 AFC championship games. We could have the argument, Clippers, Browns, or Lions, but they're one of the worst organizations in all of sports. Well, William Clay Ford was the owner. He's the worst owner ever. And, Martha wasn't, so far behind her late husband. But, where they're at right now, should any of that matter, if you're just going to enjoy, they haven't won a playoff game and, since 1957. There's been 30 years, more than 30 years since they've even won a division. There's only 4 teams in the division. They didn't make the playoffs this year, but people are all excited about the team. And I can remember after the 2014 season, account 22, what happened that year? The Lions lost to the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. And there were, sort of to a lot of people, like, conspiracy theories. I did, when it comes to the officials, I did think in that game that the officials favored the Cowboys. There was this face guarding rule that Brandon Pettigrew was out there and the guy didn't have his head turned. He's face guarding him. It totally should have been a flag. Des Bryant ran out on the field and he was arguing with the coach, had his helmet off, and he was arguing with the official out at the hash mark. There's a total 15-yard flag for any other team except the Cowboys, and that all happened, but they didn't call either of those. And, the Lions ended up losing that game. They had a shot with Stafford late in that game. That's what everybody, hey, you can't cry about the officials. I know, you can't do that. And yet, they had the spot, and they couldn't get it done. They go into the offseason. The Lions' defense was number 1 against the run. They were top 5 in overall defense, but they lost Sue. But they replaced him with Haloti Ngata, who was a tremendous veteran from the Ravens, great defensive tackle. And, maybe he wasn't going to be still great, but, pretty good. So their entire defense, and they put Ngata in for Sue. And I thought, hey, this is a good defense. And then they came out and drafted an offensive lineman. They moved up and got a running back. And I looked at it and I said, this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year that the Lions are going to beat Green Bay. They hadn't beat them in 25 years. This is the year that they're going to win the NFC North. I'm predicting it. And all off season, I had a bunch of Lion fans calling me up saying, you're dope. This Lions team sucks. I was like, well, am I always just going to say that? Or am I going to look at what's happening? And am I going to say that I think they can do it? And I did. Well, they lost their first 5 games and they started 1-7 and they fired their offensive coordinator. And I thought, man, I'm stupid to pick the Lions. This is a really dumb pick. But the funny thing about the Lions that year is they actually beat the Packers to end their jinx at Lambeau. And then they hired Jim Bob Cooter, who's now, I think, the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive coordinator, JBC, Jim Bob Cooter. And Cooter and Caldwell go out there and they just start nothing to play for, 1-7, absolute disaster. But they start winning a few ball games. And Cooter gets Stafford where he's not, throwing all these interceptions. They end up losing this game to Green Bay on this back and forth kind of thing at the end of the game in a Hail Mary. And you might remember all that. Well, my point to all that is I had all the enthusiasm heading into the year, and then, cold water with the 1-7. But it was amazing how Lion fans gravitated right back to the team for the second half into the offseason because, Jim Bob Cooter and, boy, this team really turned things around. And they won their final game. And it was like, this is going to be a springboard into next year. So I don't know, I've been down that. There's a lot of things that I like about the Lions, and I'm not stopping anybody's, off-season parade or the enjoyment of the off-season with the Lions because, look, they got a number 6 pick. They got a number 18 pick. This is the Lions. This is the feeling that this thing is going to be Dan Campbell is all, I want to know when the games count. Is he going to be rolling the dice? Like, is he going to be throwing, wide receiver hooking laterals behind the line of scrimmage, in big spots next year, when the games count? Is he going to be throwing on 3rd and 1 like he did in Thanksgiving with still time on the clock when he should be kicking the field goal? Is he going to be going for a fake punt in his own end when the games count? Is he going to be throwing to his tackle? Probably. He's going to be going for it on 4th down. I'm pretty sure of that. So I don't know. There's reasons for optimism, but I always think when I see this, just in the back of my mind, where I think, okay, I think account 22 is young. That's what I think. That he doesn't, he's not scarred by this team. He's a fan of the Detroit Lions. He's a Generation Zer. Isn't that what, if you're under 25 right now or something like that? All right. Probably too much Lions talk. I got you. I'm with you. I think this is true. Don't believe this. And if you're listening to the podcast and you're saying, what are you talking about? People are throwing their NFL takes up right now. I don't know about this. I don't like that when people say that, even though it's true. So I'm not even repeating it. Let's see what Andres is saying. It's always interesting from across the country how people are looking at these NFL games. Andres is saying that the Bengals took Zach Taylor from the quarterback coach at Oklahoma. I live in Cincy, and they hated that. Look at him now. Makes me sick as a Browns fan. Griese to U of M. Isn't that crazy in that context? Yeah, but he didn't go right from Oklahoma to Cincy. Taylor went with Sean McVay to the Rams, and then he went out there. So maybe that's what you're saying. I'll say, all right, let's look at. Let me just think this over. If Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers, I think it's going to be the Eagles. It's easy to say. They're the top 2 seeds. I'll pick the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl today. So if the 49ers, with Mr. Irrelevant and their quarterback coach is Brian Griese, you need 1 point when they have the 2 weeks of the Super Bowl leading up. And you need Kyle Shanahan to say, I really have to credit Brian Griese for what he's done with Purdy. Okay. I was just talking about it being like, but then we'd have to have the other pieces that we don't want to happen. But would then Griese be a viable coach for Michigan? Michigan, it's not lining up right now. Michigan, if they somehow lose their current head coach, they can't wait around to the Super Bowl. After the Super Bowl, oh my gosh, Where will Brady is going to have probably around 6 places that he could go next year. What if Purdy doesn't get it done for San Francisco? Maybe they want Brady over Jimmy G with Trey Lance not ready to come back. I've heard the Saints mentioned. I've heard the Dolphins mentioned, Tua. How about who was the team that was talking about they just needed a quarterback? The Jets. There's 4 or 5 for you. The Raiders, they need a quarterback. Good job. Nuss was under Hoke. They were terrible that year. I remember the instant depression that set in from the 14 Notre Dame game. Good job, Andres. That's good. Reunite with Devontae Adams. Reunite who? Oh, have David Carr going somewhere? Everybody talking about. I mentioned the Lions, so it's going to happen. Let's see. Here's some inside. CJ has the same personnel, quarterback coach, and agent as Deshaun Watson. And they are all friends, with the Texans possibly picking CJ. We're talking about CJ Stroud. Is that what we're talking about? None of them want to deal with Houston. If the name, image, and likeness is right, he'll stay at Ohio State. Well, what, Houston has the number 2 pick? And you're telling me he doesn't want to be the number 2 pick because the Texans are such a horrible organization? They certainly are horrible when they've dealt with their last 2 head coaches, neither of who deserve to be fired. I'm with you on that. But you're saying, like, you're going to go back to college instead of being the number 2 pick, if the name, image, and likeness is right. So how much guaranteed money, so being the number 2 pick, isn't it like, I was going to say, $20 million guaranteed? I mean, how much name, image, and likeness money are we talking about here? I don't think there's any way a top 5 pick, certainly top 10 pick, is coming back for all the name, image, and likeness money in the world. But that's my guess. Airbnb account 22 finally found something that we agree on. The Dallas, there was something it smelled like a rat. A lot of games smell like a rat, but there was a rat. That one had a tail on it and all of that. Am I going to talk about Michigan today? No, we're just talking about the pros. That's it. OT, you're going to have to go back to the beginning of the show. I talked about Michigan basketball. I talked about Trevor Keegan coming back, the loss of Okie. We talked about the Michigan offensive line and the Michigan defensive line. And so I went over the games with a Michigan slant. And so sometimes, the last couple of minutes, 99% of the time, OT, I'm talking about Michigan. This is kind of talking about Michigan. It happens. What's your question, OT? I'll go into, I don't have any time limits on this. I always think about maybe I should just do about 20 minutes on the show. Just report, just give you the facts, give me some opinions, and then be out. But I've enjoyed people that come in with their feedback. And it makes me feel like I'm doing a talk show, and I find it being entertaining myself, but also for others. But OT, just for you, get your Michigan question in there and something that you want to talk about, and I'll talk about it. Whatever it is, you give me the Michigan question. That's what I want to talk about. I will see if you come up with something. I don't, I know this. I'm good with people that, and I'm sorry for talking so much NFL, Rico, and I get it. And if I could pick, I don't have to. Let me say, if you had to pick between the NFL and college football, which would you pick? College football. It's always been that way. NFL's never taken over for me. I like the NFL, but I like college. And I always thought if the Lions played outdoors and they had a Lambeau field, they had success of the Packers when I was growing up, maybe I would be this this Lions fan like that. But it just so happened that Michigan, did have like a Lambeau. They even had a better stadium than Lambeau Field. It's comparable, actually. I've never been to Lambeau, but you have the bands and you have everything when it comes to Michigan. It's not been a full hour. That's incorrect. OT, get your question in. Let's go. No more NFL talk today. I'm ready for the Michigan questions. Zach Zinter should be making an announcement soon because he has till Monday. OT, no Michigan questions. I'm going to rely on somebody else then. Richard, I didn't even know that you listened to the radio back in the day. I like that. Thanks, Account 22. I'm with you. You guys are a big part of the show. Now, give me a Michigan question to wrap this up. You can do something 99% of the time. And he's like, 1% of the time, I was going in the wild card weekend. And, I thought I'd put a little Michigan flavor to it. Let's not. Let's look at all of the teams and where the Michigan players are on these teams. Let's look through all these rosters. That's Michigan. 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 And this is the jumping off points to all that. And this is the last slide that I was going to show, and I'll get to that coming up in a moment. Let's get some Michigan questions up here. All right, here we got two. We got two to go with. One basketball, one football. Michigan basketball total wins. Well, I think that they're going to stay above 500 right now. But thinking about this team getting into the NCAA tournament, while it is early, I would have to say that I think that is unlikely. That is not something that I want. So I'm sorry for that prediction. They played 16 games. They're just 2 games above 500. And I'm not rooting for the I was going to call it the NIL. I am rooting for the NIL. I'm not rooting for the NIT. But I am rooting for the NIL. I hadn't thought about this, KC, but let's do it. Let's do it while we have it here. If I had the schedule to put up there in front of you, I would do it. They have 9 wins right now. Let's go through the schedule for the rest of this month. Against Northwestern, W. At Maryland, loss. Minnesota comes in after that, win. Purdue comes to Michigan on Thursday, January the 26th. They beat Purdue last year. I'm going to go ahead and give Michigan a win against Purdue. The 26th, Penn State. Michigan has to go to Penn State. I'm going to give Michigan a win there. How about that? And Michigan's next 5 games, I have them winning 4 out of the next 5 games in January. Going to be a lot of enthusiasm for the Wolverines if that happens. Then Michigan goes to Northwestern. Win. How about this? Ohio State at Michigan. Win. I know they lost last year, that kind of same situation. Nebraska at Michigan. Win. For the record, out of Michigan's next 8 games, I have them winning 7. Maybe I should change that on the Purdue game, but I'm not. I made I called my shot. I took my shot. I've got them winning 7 out of the next 8. Indiana at Michigan. All right. They're going to lose that one. You can't win them all. Michigan at Wisconsin on Valentine's Day. You get these scumbags, not my words, Hunter Dickinson in the crowd there at the Kohl Center, and Greg Garr, and you got the slap, swing, and everything else going on there. I'm going to say Whiskey wins that game. Michigan State at Michigan. That's a W for the Wolverines. Michigan at Rutgers. That's a loss. Wisconsin at Michigan. Wolverines return the favor. Well, slap fest there. That gets us to March. Michigan at Illinois and Michigan at Indiana. I'd like to say that they're going to split those 2 games, but I don't think that that's going to happen. So let's count it on up. I've got them winning 9, going at 9-6, and their record right now is 9-7, 18-13. KC, I think, will be their final record. And that does have them winning against Purdue. Is that going to be good enough? Because then you get into the Big Ten tournament. Can they get to 20? Can they win 2 in the Big Ten tournament to make it 20? That's where I'm at. All right. Let's see. What does look promising is their upcoming schedule now that we go through it. I said, hey, let's ask me some Michigan questions. Is Harbaugh leaving? Let me think about that one for a minute. I'm going to end with that one, Michael. That's going to take some thought. I've been thinking about that too much, but I haven't really thought about it in the last hour, so I got to kind of recalibrate. What's your biggest factor for Michigan improving next year? I think the offense is good. I think the defense is good. Give me a kicker. What's the biggest factor for Michigan improving next year? I like it's got to be at the defensive side. Got to be they lose Maize Smith. And let's see about Chris Jenkins. I think the factor right now, I'm going to go to the defensive line. I'm going to go to defensive tackle. I think the biggest factor right now is give me Chris Jenkins coming back. And can Rayshawn Benny step up and play starter snaps? I know they got Mason Graham in there, so I feel pretty good about, and Kenneth Grant. Can those guys take the step? It feels good. But could they replace Maize Smith and possibly Chris Jenkins? My biggest factor right now, the interior defensive line. Okay. People don't think that. They don't like that. Shane. I was going to see Shane in here. Better late than never, Shane. 9 offensive linemen for 5 spots. Zinter, Keegan, Barnesy. It's Carson Barnhart. Is that Barnesy? I got it. Jonesy, Drake, Nugent, El Hadi. Forgot about him. He's a good player. Hinton, the transfer. Henderson, the transfer. Who you got? For 5 spots. All right. At left tackle, I think that is going to be Jones. That's going to be my pick right now. What about is that everyone? Because I was thinking, is Piercy in there? Because I would think it would be between Piercy and has Trente Jones transferred? Oh, no, you got Jones here. I was thinking Connor Jones. Trente Jones and Piercy would be my guess right now. Those are who are in there. So those are, I think, are the tackles. I got Piercy at left tackle, Jones at right. I got Keegan. And then I'm going to give you the transferred Nugent at center. So I just need a right guard. And I am going to put Zach Zinter, which would be nice. No, I'm going to put – that's who I want to put in there. That's who I want to put in there. I don't think he's going to stay. Henderson. Even though he played left guard. So I'm going with Piercy, Keegan, Nugent, Henderson, Trente Jones. But, we could get some transfers still going out. We could get some guys coming in. I think they could be an NCAA tournament. category. I'm with you on that. People, there could be some surprises. There's somebody talking about Andrew Gentry. Connor Jones could be one of those surprises. So I am with you on that. Zinger is staying. Zinter, I don't know. I'll tell you this, that if Zach Zinter comes back, that would be better than having 6 wild card weekend games this week, all be like, the greatest games ever. They could all just be complete flops and everything else, but Zinter comes back and Michigan has had a great weekend. That's what it's all about. So now the final question of the day, and I'm going to ask everyone else. Michael gave me the question. I am going to think about it. I want you to type in your responses. Here it is, sending you into the weekend. Michigan question. Is Harbaugh leaving? That's the question. What's your answer? Put it in right now. See what the people have to say. Get a couple of them up there. My answer is that I think that he wants an NFL job. I feel like, I was thinking about this today, that, back in 2020 when Ward Manuel slashed his salary in half, and every story that came out is they slashed Harbaugh's salary. And then even when he won last year, everybody was like, look at Harbaugh, what he's did, because they slashed his salary. They kept saying it. And, Harbaugh himself was like, hey, he was fine with all of that and everything. But it was like, you can't be fine with it. If somebody slashes your salary, you got to have an axe to grind. And then this time around with the whole thing like Ward Manuel versus Jim Harbaugh, people are like, these two can't, and maybe that's true, can't work together because Harbaugh got his salary slashed, and he's still got an axe to grind. I also think that Harbaugh has an axe to grind with the fans. And I think it comes from, and I don't think he has a leg to stand on here, but I think it goes back to the 2020 season. And when he got his salary slashed, do you remember last year when Michigan won? It was John Harbaugh, his brother, who was congratulating, Michigan on the win and beating Ohio State. And maybe it was even after winning the Big Ten. John Harbaugh said, and you really have to, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but he said, you really got to credit Jim. And after the way he was treated by all of those people back in Ann Arbor, and then he said, in the media too. And I thought, the media and the fans and the way he was treated, Jim Harbaugh was looked at as, as most favorably as you could possibly be looked at when he came in. And he was a grand slam hire. Almost every person agreed with that. He was the guy to get Michigan back. But, by 2020, if Michigan fans were in charge and if I was in charge, I would have said it's time to move on. So does that mean like I'm was out to get him, or that was some like outlandish type approach, or I'm a hater or react? Not at all. That was 6 years. And look, these aren't lifetime appointments. Like, it wasn't unreasonable. I would tell this to John Harbaugh to his face. I would tell it to Jim Harbaugh to his face. There was nothing unreasonable about moving on after the 2020 season. You looked haggard. You looked like you just weren't going to be able to get it done. And at some point, what were we going to say? Oh, Jim, you're a Michigan man. Let's just keep the faith and stay behind you forever. Let's not cut your salary. Let's double it. I mean, what are we talking about here? So I think that Harbaugh, because when John said that, I thought, wow, what a weird comment for John Harbaugh to say after the way he was treated. I mean, look, you're always going to have crazed fans, and everything. Like, there are probably people like, fire him after the TCU game. Like, come on. But when John Harbaugh makes a point to say that after the way he was treated in Ann Arbor, by the fans and the media. I mean, what are we really talking about? He was treated fantastic. So I think some of this has to do with like, yeah, Jim wants to go back to the NFL. He's like, he wasn't, I don't know what kind of treatment that he was looking for. I think that he has been treated like, do they want me? And I'll offer to go down. I'll throw rose petals at his feet. Wherever he walks for a year, I'll be the rose petal thrower. Is that what John Harbaugh was talking about? I mean, if they're listening to a bunch of Spartans on the radio, you know what you expect from a bunch of Spartans on the radio? A bunch of nonsense, drivel, bile. And that's what you got. What's John Harbaugh think when he listens to, like Bengal sports talk radio? Do you think they're all like, John Harbaugh is a tremendous coach? No, they're talking about him being a clown. So I don't know. I just had that thought about, people are like, well, Jim owes Michigan. I think Jim and John look back and they're like, yeah, see how they were treating you in 2020? Go and do whatever you want. I think that might be part of it. But I don't think any NFL team's going to give him a job unless it's the freaking Broncos. And I feel like that would be in spite. This is where it all comes down and you start saying crazy things. I think he's coming back to Michigan. I think he's going to get his raise. I think that he is going to be the highest paid coach of the Big Ten. I think his assistants will be flush with cash. I don't know about the name, image, and likeness package. That's like I said, this gigantic thing that people talk about that I don't know. They say it's there, but we're hunting a great white whale when it comes to the name, image, and likeness. And when it comes to the buyout, can there be some negotiation there where it doesn't have to be this little buyout, but it doesn't have to be this one where Harbaugh, there's got to be a sweet spot where it comes down, with the buyout. But ultimately, I think he comes back. That's my prediction. I got there for a long way. It took me a long way to get there. Let's see. Do people think that Jim Harbaugh is coming back? No. Oh, boy. I got a feeling it might be indigestion, but Harbaugh is back. If not, Griese's coming in. Richard thinks he's coming back. Russell does not think so. Venice, where you been? Happy New Year! Good to see him. This is one of my favorite people in all of the Michigan community here, Venice. He's got 3 100s where he's hoping so. Ooh, I don't like count 22 coming in with a no. A lot of no's. But Richard has a yes. Michael, he was damn near run out of town thanks to the Buckeyes. That part is true. You got to beat the Buckeyes. And now that he's beaten the Buckeyes, look at it. He is back to king status. Lose to the Buckeyes for 5 years in a row. You're pushed to the edge. And what would have been a 6th year? You're pushed to the brink no matter who you are. Out. Beat the Buckeyes. You're back. Lesson. Beat the Buckeyes. That's what's going on. Too many no's. Oh, I asked if he was leaving. So I got a different. People think he's coming back. I'm sorry. I was thinking, wow, we have a lot of pessimistic Michigan fans. Wow, they're in a bad spot. It's all about not only how you ask the question, but then how you answer it, and then how you deliver it. So all of these, do I think he's going to the pros? Let's go back. No, I don't think so. Eddie English, no, does not think Jim Harbaugh is going to the pros. No, does not think that he's going pro. Russell does not think that he's going pro. Either does Account 22. Richard was smart because he had an idea that I was screwing it up, and he said he is coming back. I think Venice and I, because we are kind of in the same, we are in tune, even though we weren't on New Year's Day when it came down to the Michigan game plan and everything. You can understand some of that. Emotions were running high. He's saying that he hopes that he comes back. He doesn't say that. He says, I hope so. I'm just reading into what, Venice was saying. Yeah. Now it's different. Now Michigan's got some positivity heading in. Everybody except Cameron. It says he gone. All right. I'm gone. Everybody have a great weekend. Remember, 99% of the time, it's Michigan talk. 1% of the time, we'll talk about something else, but we'll try to throw a Michigan angle in there, and then we'll get criticized for it. But that's okay. We'll see you this weekend over on the Maize and Blue Review. If you are a Michigan basketball fan, remember this. The Wolverines are hosting Northwestern. It's going to be the start of this extremely long winning streak that the Wolverines are going to have. And the schedule has opened up. Just think if they'd have won that game last night. Positivity looking ahead for Juwan Howard and company. What do you think he's saying here, Jet? Hey, Jet, you can score 34 on Iowa. I think you might have a 40 piece for the Cats coming up this Sunday. If you are inclined after the game, I'll be talking about it. If some might watch a football game or two, you can always catch it on the replay on both YouTube and the podcast. So all of that available to you. Everybody have a great weekend. I hope that we're sitting here on Monday and the smoke out of the chimneys in Ann Arbor is not black. And it could be white, but I hope it's maize and blue, and that, this part is over and that we are turning the page and we are on to talking about the spring game or something like that. Not talking about Jim Harbaugh going to the NFL. That's my hope. We'll see how it plays out this weekend. Everybody have a great one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.